Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Marketing Growth Show. Today I have Doug Birnbaum from Branded Content Media. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Give us a quick introduction. Tell us a bit about you. Tell us a bit about the business, what you guys do, who you guys serve. I'd love to hear the overview.
Yeah. I think the best way to kind of get into that is tell a little bit about my story.
Please.
This all happened pretty organically for me. I went out and I went off to film school. I was really interested in kind of storytelling and acting and all those things. I would send somebody into film school, and I'm of the generation that watched kind of the '90s independent film boom happen, and
Mm-hmm.
we were all kind of inspired by this new energy of kind of going out, grabbing a camera with your friends, and making something happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that sent a lot
Nice.
of people kind of off to film school at that time.
Yep.
Yeah, and I worked in television. I worked in Hollywood for a few years. Um, Everything from sort of working with ESPN X Games to doing a few stints on some reality shows.
Okay.
Making some pilots, shooting independent films with my friends, doing all of those things that you could do to get active in
Yep.
that world. Around 2008, things got a little bit slow with the recession around LA. LA's always going through these kind of peaks and valleys in production, or
Sure.
at least as
Yep.
far back as I can remember, they've always gone through them. And
Yep.
they've seemed to kind of be resilient, but everyone seems to kind of punch a little harder and hurt a little more when you talk
Yep.
to kind of LA production people.
Mm-hmm.
But I went up to San Francisco to go to school for still photography in 2008 because I at least had a little bit of a slowdown in production back then.
Yep.
And I studied still photography. I was all in. I went to go knock on all doors around San Francisco as a still photographer. And at that time, or this is 2012 now because I finished my degree. I got an MFA in still photography, and I was ready to
Mm-hmm.
go, be a still photographer. This new love and passion that that kind of filmmaking led me toward. Most people go the other way around, where they're still photographers and then they take on filmmaking. I went from
Yep.
filmmaking to trying to just deepen my knowledge of photography, which is something I've always really loved, and it
Cool.
informed my filmmaking quite a bit.
Yep.
So I went and got this degree and put together a portfolio and you know, went to agencies and said, "Here I am, I want to shoot." At the time, all these other still photographers who I knew kind of said, "Okay, you've got this background in motion. Here's a little video project that, somebody's asking for, or go do this or go do that." And, I could shoot a little bit of motion, I could cut a little bit. So here I did these film projects and I got really, really, really busy with video work. It just kind of took off from there, and there was enough demand at that time. This is about 2000. I graduated 2012, so this is probably 2013 or 14 that things
Okay.
were really going quickly in video. And I kind of said, I'm a still photographer, so I'm just moonlighting on the still photography with this video work coming in.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
started this kind of side little video production business, Branded Content Media, and I just was so immediately busy because of the demand around video at that time that I was
Yeah.
just shooting, 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 going, okay, I'm not going to really talk about this because I'm going to get back to the still portfolio that I'm building. And this
Right.
video
Yeah.
thing is just sort of paying the bills. But here it went, like, coming in so hard and fast for all of these years that I really never got to have that still photography career. I ended up with this video career instead, which
Yeah.
I kind of own, and I own now, and laugh about that story. But because it's kind of the unintended consequences of what you're trying to do versus what the opportunity that kind of sits in front of you. So that's basically
Mm-hmm.
my story in a nutshell. Yeah.
It's funny how life kind of like kicks you in a direction sometime. You're like, I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden, it's like you back up to something in the middle of the night and, oh, I guess I'm doing this instead. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Totally. So, I really am a motion shooter. I really am kind of a director of photography and a cinematographer in training and at heart.
Hmm.
Some of the things that we go out and do are a lot of, corporate video kind of things. And, I've shot some pretty key interviews of important people and C-level executives for a lot of years. Just a little bit of celebrity, a little bit of this and that, and
Hmm.
it's been an awesome run. And yeah, and it has been all mainly now around creative content, branded content for brands, and that's a very, very, very broad niche in and of itself. As we've seen, the world of sort of social come in and become almost hyper focused in a way where, people are really distinguishing now the difference between direct to consumer and the direct business to business, and you know maybe live event or conference work, or all of these things that we see emerging in video. We're really seeing people start to kind of specialize and live within these niches. Because I was kind of a DP and a shooter, I got to kind of touch a lot of those different projects, and
Yeah.
I've probably gotten to see a little bit broader of a world, I'd argue, than other people in video, just because I'd get hired to do something like, what I'm sitting in here, where I haul a bunch of lights out to a location and we set up a key, you know some kind of shoot. So that's been my background.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what kind of clients do you serve? Because it sounds like you've had a broad range, but what's like your most typical client, would you say?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've probably worked like with bigger brands and bigger business. So what that
Okay.
means is that the jobs come to me in an interesting way, where they'll come to me from the way of agencies or production companies mainly.
Hmm.
We've definitely done stuff that's client direct. We'd like to do a whole lot more that's client direct. I mean, that's probably part of my goals in the near future, is to like lead a campaign or something. So that would mean going client direct and kind of doing, maybe a package of kind of go to market startup videos for a smaller, more emerging brand.
Hmm.
But so that's my goal, really, is to do projects like that, just because I love the messaging and I love the storytelling. I love conceptualizing video from the beginning.
Yeah.
But career wise, mainly stuff has come to me through agencies or other production companies, and we'll just be an arm of whatever's needed. And
Hmm.
that's mainly because I am a shooter, in my
Sure.
training and background and heart. So, I'm kind of a local shooter to San Francisco, and people will come here and hire me for what needs to be done. And then we've established really good relationships with clients. So there's been times where, that production's taken us on the road, or, people come back and work with us again and again, which is great. So, to answer your question, mainly big businesses, mainly kind of the agencies and production companies that work for them. And now we're in such an interesting world, because a lot of these big companies have kind of an agency of record that they own that kind of does their creative work for them. So, in a sense, you can almost be working client direct while working with an agency at the same
Sure.
time, because that's how some of the really big companies are starting to kind of operate. So that's kind of an interesting thing to point out now. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, I want to, since we're kind of on the topic, let's talk a bit about how you've grown the business over the years. So I know in the beginning it was almost like you didn't even really want to do the video stuff, and
Yeah.
obviously a lot of that just came in through kind of people just asking
Mhm.
about it, and maybe some referrals and stuff like that. But I guess two questions on this. When did you really decide, okay, hey, this video thing's got some legs, let's run with it? And then once you kind of decided that, how did you actually go about growing the business, and what's worked, what's not worked?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And like, I think back on that myself too. Where it was never really that I didn't want to do it. It's just I really wanted to do this other thing at the moment, and this
Gotcha. Yeah.
opportunity kind of presented itself. So I always liked it, but I had my eyes on, the people that I was looking at the time and kind of admiring were these people shooting big commercial photography projects at the time. So
Okay.
I was looking at kind of their business model and going, that's what I want. That's what I want. How do you get to do that? And there were these pieces of photography that were sort of interesting in me. I mean, like, an individual can really be, the sole author of a piece of work, even if they have a big crew around them. They get to kind of conceptualize, they get to go, direct, so to speak. They get to cast that thing and put the whole thing together. And it's really their touch. So I think I really admired how sole and singular the authorship of a photographer is. And I think that was maybe appealing to me, because I have a side of me that I have to like kind of kill, that's the introverted side. So I think kind of being able
Mm.
to work kind of autonomously by yourself was really, really appealing after leaving Hollywood, where it takes, 100 people to go out and
Sure.
do like a
Yeah.
TV show or something. It's like, here's somebody who's just going out and working with themselves, and when they get like a job, they crew up. I put the parentheses around working for yourself, because it totally takes a team to do any of that work.
Right.
But I think coming off of like the big set Hollywood stuff, it's like you can just go out into the world with a camera and work by yourself. That's so freeing. That's so amazing. So I think that that's where photography kind of appealed to me at that time.
Okay.
And then I really did copy kind of that business model because that was the world I was hanging out with. So I was kind of marketing myself, putting my name out there. I was just getting pulled in to shoot all of these motion pieces. And where that was kind of interesting was, I'd hand off a drive to people. I'd shoot it, DP it, all that stuff, get a pat on the back. Everyone liked the work I was doing. But I wasn't really growing a video production business in the sense because I couldn't say, hey, that project we did, here is start to finish, and here's the results that we got, and here's, how we identified this, client avatar and wrote a story for it because we didn't do any part of that. We were just doing the kind of execution on the ground shoot aspect of it. And it really left me wanting a lot more out of what we did creatively. As far as kind of my team goes, or as far as my, hand on the project. And I've always been really interested in kind of start to finish video work. So when I started my video company, it was thinking that it would be from, concept to execution and analyzing the data, giving people, the whole run of show of sort of how their videos are performing online. And I
Yeah.
started that company in 2014. The problem was I couldn't really buckle down and start that company because I was getting pulled into so many shoots as a DP.
Right.
So for years and years and
Yeah.
years, I was just busy, for the next 2 weeks. I'm booked out and I'm off shooting and I'm off shooting. And it was like that for, forever. So I kind of had this thought I'd be a photographer, ended up shooting motion, thought I'd established this big video production company, but really just stayed in that position of a DP for just, I don't know how long it's been now, 15 years or so. So
Yeah.
that's kind of been my run. And I still have that one. I always talk about my goal is to sort of, build a little bit more of the analytics and the, the outreach side of it all, just so that across the board we can kind of build these kind of go to market launch videos, just like a little bit more of a, an video agency approach to the business more than just deeping. Yeah.
Yeah. What's been the roadblock in terms of you doing
Oh,
that?
just it's I'm a victim of success. It's just I'm so busy shooting other people's stuff that I hardly get to go out and do my own stuff. Yeah.
What do you think would need to be in place for you to be able to do that? Like, would you have to hire other people to come do the shooting for you, or like what would actually need to be in place for
It's
that to be a
really
reality?
it's really hard to hire people to shoot for me. It's really
Okay.
really really difficult. And I wish that part of it was easier. We've tried and tried and tried, and it's like
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I'm not saying I'm the best person on earth or anything like that. That's not really
Sure.
the conversation. I think the conversation is kind of the handoff and the efficiency and the and just the it's a few parts. I don't know what it is, or maybe it's just that I want to do it. Handing the shooting off has probably been the roadblock of it all. It's just how difficult that is.
Mm.
And maybe it's just difficult on me too, so that's part of the thing. And then also it would just be sort of saying no to certain projects to take on other ones. So I guess that's a roadblock. I don't, that's a hard thing to answer too, because it's like, I feel like I've always wanted to have a little bit of the ability to kind of say no to things. And that's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
There's something really great about just shooting because that is kind of my background and my expertise. So I'm in kind of my sweet spot, but it's also like, we have to just sort of take on, and we have in the past. I mean, we've done plenty of it. But we just have to take on more clients that are sort of that start to finish kind of, here's the concept, here's the wireframe of what we want to build for you. Let's put these videos out there in the world and see how they did. So I think I just have to kind of like slow down, get off the road for a bit, and then take on doing that sort of work that I've always seen our company doing. I just have been too busy going out and shooting projects and assignments to slow down and do it all.
Do you feel like you don't have enough of those opportunities coming in to justify doing that, or
They present themselves. They present themselves regularly enough. I mean, I think it's just the other stuff has grown too. And, and I have this kind of business model as a DP that it's hard to turn off and walk away from. And both in terms of business and in terms of as an artist, it's hard to go, okay, you presented something that's already spelled out. All I have to come in and do is, it's all
just
lined up. The dates are set. All I have to come in and do is execute on that. That's perfect. That's,
yeah.
getting into a warm, familiar bathtub, right? So it's like,
Mm.
it's hard to say no to that because it took me, years to get there. That's something that I've built that I don't really want to walk away from
Sure.
either.
Yeah.
So it's hard in a few places, and I'm just one person, and I want to build this thing as an entrepreneur but I also want to kind of continue to do what I've always wanted to do as an artist. And they don't conflict, but they can momentarily conflict with one another,
Mhm.
in some sense, because it's just much longer time frame to build out a whole ad campaign than it is to just, even fly across the country with gear and shoot for a day or two and fly back.
Mhm.
It's like, that's done at the end of the week, where building out a campaign might be shifting into sort of a different timeline, because now we're managing something that's long term, as opposed to just,
Have you
something.
ever thought about have you ever thought about maybe just outsourcing that side of the business?
Yeah, totally. And we tried that. We've tried that. And it's an interesting thing, because everybody talks about that like it's totally the solution, but you have to really kind of like fumble with that and learn kind of how to outsource and who to outsource parts to.
Right.
And it's an interesting conversation, because there's some pain points around that too, because you want it to be done with your style and your satisfaction, and you have to kind of build that team in time. Um,
Like as far as the
outsourcing
marketing side of things, you mean, right?
Well, marketing outsourcing, I think, is probably the easiest thing to outsource,
Yeah,
because
that's more what I was referring to than maybe the shooting part or anything like
yeah,
that. That's more
shooting
the
and editing
yeah,
gets a little bit harder. It's not impossible, and some
yeah,
people have huge degrees of success, but it really
yeah.
depends on what type of content they're building
Right.
and what the style is and how hands-on and what the turnaround is and things like that. You're always essentially outsourcing in production anyway, because it's such a collaborative art form and you're hiring people to do this and that. It's just like,
Hmm.
are you outsourcing locally? Or are you outsourcing remotely? It's like, if you build up enough work, you probably bring some of that in-house. So I guess you're no longer outsourcing. You're kind of producing. But at some point, like, there's a lot of hands on everything that gets made as far as video goes.
Hmm.
It's interesting. But like, I think the first thing we ever outsourced was probably marketing.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if somebody has like an email and a cold call and a newsletter, and like some kind of a framework for us, I mean, that's something that we've outsourced many times before. And I feel like we'll try it all, in terms of if there's a new trend, or if there's something new to try, or a new technique or something. Like, I feel like we try and dabble and try different things.
Hmm.
And voicing's important too, because I've worked as a DP, where it's really important for me to go, hey, agency or production company, we're here in San Francisco and we can kind of facilitate that shoot for you.
Hmm.
That's worked really well with being either on directories or reaching out to people or whatever it may be. Where the other
Hmm.
side of it is like, hey, company founder, we can do my production company would have the voicing of like, hey, video
Yeah,
company,
yeah,
or hey, whoever it is, founder, we can kind of give you a go-to-market strategy through video that aligns with whatever it
yeah,
is, your messaging or brand. Yeah, so we've
yeah.
we've definitely outsourced outreach, and that's one of the first
Nice.
things that I think we found valuable to outsource, is definitely the outreach part.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What would you say are like the ultimate goals with your business? Because I know you said eventually, maybe some of the go-to market stuff,
Yeah.
different things like that. But like, if I had a magic wand, for example, like, hey, what would the ideal business look like for you? I guess.
It's probably seen some client success, and that's
Okay.
I'm saying that I sound really like client facing, but there's selfishness
Sure.
there too, because
Yeah.
client success is really your success when you are doing a
Sure.
marketing business. So
Sure.
it would be getting a handful of clients like up and going to where they have some good analytics around the power of video and what it can really do for somebody
Hmm.
this day and age going on into the marketplace. And it's interesting because video can really give them the exposure and the results they need if they have kind of like a click to buy kind of direct to consumer scenario that they have to kind of get out into the marketplace. It can also give them a lot of kind of analytics and knowledge about this brand that they're building, because they can track results in real time with where
Hmm.
that posts and where people are watching it and how they're engaging with that footage. So there's this huge just market research aspect of video if they're truly A/B testing and kind of paying attention to the analytics. And then I'm just so interested in that stuff. I geek out on that stuff all day long. But my background really is with the aesthetics and the look and the style of video, and that's what I've gotten
Hmm.
hired to do for, I don't know. It's kind of hard to count how many years I've done it, because you know it really started in 2012. I kind of founded my business in 2014, so it's kind of somewhere in that era is when I kind of got busy doing this stuff. And but yeah, I mean, I think the style part's extremely important, but the analytics and the strategy are what are just running so quickly these days that it's hard to ignore that. It's really just there's so many tools available to people to market online now. It's really a great time to be doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
especially with AI coming now, for sure. I mean, the tools are just increasing exponentially.
It's
Um,
fascinating. It's so fascinating what AI can do.
it's so nuts. Yeah.
And it's like some days I wake up just terrified of what AI might do, and other days I wake up and go, "These are the best tools ever. Why didn't we have these all along?" So it's like I'm so mixed and conflicted by it all, where I don't even know what to think. And I'm like, at the same time, I'm so impressed with it. Like when I see what Sora's doing, I'm like, this is so fascinating because it's like, I've never dreamed of having something like this. But at the same time, I'm not sure if I'm rushing home to go watch Sora videos for the next 3 hours. So, I want to
Right.
see actors kind of fumble through their lines a little bit and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and the human element of things in my content. But, who's to say you can't tell Sora is just like act like a clumsy actor that people relate to. And now it's doing it. So it's such a fascinating time to kind of look at all this stuff.
Yeah. It's so crazy. Yeah. So jump. I want to talk about AI here,
Yeah.
but jumping back just for the bit. So ultimately, like the goal with the business is to kind of get into more of the analytics, go-to market strategies, kind of for clients. Like you are wanting to move in that direction. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's
Okay.
where I want to go. And it really is backing out from that a bit too. I mean, it really comes down to kind of storytelling and what we say in these pieces and how we get that to kind of respond to markets. So
Yeah.
I think that it's a big piece of it is writing and wanting to kind of conceptualize video because for so many years I sort of shot other people's concept and I shot other people's whether it be a mood board or a script or, bullet points or whatever it may be, or keynote interview or something. So I've gone around with cameras for many years shooting that kind of content. And now it's really, I say now, but
You.
ever since forming the company, I've always wanted to just do more writing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to kind of be the director a little bit more or less.
Yeah, along those lines. I mean, it's
Okay.
tricky because I still love the camera work. I think I'll always do this.
Sure.
I don't think it's anything I'm gonna give up. It's really hard to kind of do both. But I do, I do want to kind of conceptualize things. And there's places, especially in advertising, where you can kind of direct and shoot. If you
Sure.
were to go out and take on a movie, you'd be lost, and I don't know if you'd ever finish the thing. Robert Rodriguez kind of did that a long time ago and became kind of an icon for just one man crew and stuff. But I
Yeah. Yeah.
with advertising, if it's sort of like product shots with a little call to action and maybe there's an interview, I think I could get away with a lot of it to a certain point. And then again, we're getting back into kind of how to outsource and how to kind of take on crews and where to hand
Sure.
stuff off. And you know,
Yeah.
it all goes
All the
back to
fun
that.
stuff.
It's how you grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. Well, let's touch on AI. So, are you, you know, the way I mean, AI is happening whether we want it to or not,
Yeah.
right? And it's going to
Yeah.
take a lot of jobs. It's going to provide some jobs. Like, are you worried about it? Where do you see things going? How do you see yourself integrating AI into your business? Walk us through your, I guess, just overall thoughts on AI. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean there's so many ways to jump into that, and that's such a quick one. Like I think like most people have Chat GPT or Gemini or one of the big let's bring Gronk or whoever it is. I have one of those browsers open pretty much all the time, and it's
Yeah.
usually at least kind of like an advanced spell check for me.
Sure.
I want my voice to be in things. So if ChatGPT just completely takes what I wrote and writes like a whole dissertation, I'm always telling it like back off, just take what I wrote and check the spelling and grammar of it. That's all I'm asking for. So
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah.
it's sort of like this super spell check at the moment, but then I will go
Yeah.
to it for like broad ideas and outlines. It's really great with that. Like I'm going to throw 1,000 ideas at you and kind of outline this. So I
Yeah.
want it to be really a tool. I want it to supercharge me and my voice on steroids without becoming the voice. And
Sure.
I don't know. It's a really tricky line with that. So it's tough, but I do think I interact daily with those chatbots. I'm a lousy speller. I'm probably dyslexic. I've been diagnosed with that. but it makes me great visually as an artist, but the spelling is all
Sure.
secondary to me.
Yeah.
So to have a form like that, that I can just sort of throw wild ideas and thoughts into, and it can kind of give me an outline and spell check things. That's kind of my first and foremost use of AI is really there. It's my crutch for, grammar and spelling.
Right.
Beyond that, it's like, it's amazing what these tools are doing, Sora and things like that. Like, I mean, I guess we've used it. I used it on kind of like a little sample YouTube channel that I was playing around with last summer. I was building a little YouTube channel just to sort of see how quickly I could build a channel and what kind of traction I could get. And I was moderately satisfied by what I was able to do with YouTube, just kind of using tools and techniques there. But AI was huge with that because when it was like, hey, give me a description of what this video is, we can now transcribe dialogue, throw the dialogue into a bot, come up with the title, do this and do that, like pretty much instantly. So for those kind of things where we're building really, really quickly, it was so incredible with what AI could do. And AI was actually generating kind of the backgrounds for this channel. We're shooting on a green screen where I'm standing, or I'm actually sitting, but right about here there was a green screen, and we just put an AI background into it. That was pretty cool. I think we used Runway at the time, and it generated that, and so I was getting blown away with like how you could implement it into live production instead of replacing live production. And
Yeah.
I'm seeing that with all these people shooting on kind of LED walls, just how great all of these tools have become to world build in the visual sense, and then on the idea side and writing, it's pretty good, but it's not really that interesting to me yet. I feel like it's so soon going to be like, now we're at AGI. Now it's just way better than what, William Shakespeare ever wrote. Now we have the AI version. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
we're quite there yet, but you can kind of see on the not so distant horizon that may be where we'll be. But like a lot of it is somewhat forecasting. And then the other part of it too is like, we have to think about like what human capital's worth. Like, where do we come into this? Are we just prompting? Did it totally just overtake us?
Yeah.
What do we work on? Do we just work on kind of more like analog arts, and AI takes over the whole digital future? So there's just so many questions about this thing that are just interesting in the conversation.
Are you worried about it in any way, shape, or form in terms of like maybe, eventually it gets to a point where it just completely overtakes what you can do as a human in the photography or videography space?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think replacing human capital will always be the concern. It's not just in video or photography. I mean, it's in, if
Right.
you ran a law firm with 300 people writing contracts, do you still need 300 people writing those contracts? Or do you just need, two proofreading
Two guys per, yeah.
what this LLM is doing? And then, there's so many questions. It's not just us. I mean, our field is sort of running at the same pace of everybody else that might get replaced by AI. It's interesting because I feel like we thought maybe the reason that it's a little bit of a canary in the coal mine, like if we're going down the route of like what we're worried about, it's just that you would have thought that a visual artist would never be replaced by technology because there's aesthetic and there's choice and there's taste and there's all these things. 2 years ago we had
No.
Will Smith eating that bowl of spaghetti, and it's freaking awful. And now you could have it look like Will Smith is eating a bowl of spaghetti and cinematic lighting, and here's the next movie coming out by whoever, Hollywood studio. So it's kind of amazing how far it's come in 2 years, or whatever that timeline's been. And then 2 years from now, it's going to be that much further
Crazy.
along. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
the visual arts are interesting, and, but so is everything else. So is music, and so is we're all on the same chopping block with this. It's really a conversation about human capital versus this industry or that industry. It seems to all be moving along at about the same pace, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense, man. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I think I want to start moving a bit more towards the tail end of this. This has been freaking, the conversation around AI is so fascinating to me as a whole.
yeah.
I'm sure he's probably just riff on that forever.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
like, in, yeah, where it's going, and I mean that's a whole thing. But I'd love to kind of touch in on a few questions before we wrap things up. So, you've been running the business for a while now. You've seen some things work, some things not work.
Yeah.
You've tried to grow and scale, and you've kind of hit certain plateaus and different things like that. But for somebody trying to grow their own agency, creative studio, whatever that, anything that kind of realm of like outward facing marketing type business, what
Yeah.
would you say has been your biggest lesson, insight, piece of advice, something that somebody could take and be like, hey, this is a little gold nugget that I can take?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I I feel like I'm a person asking marketers for advice a lot of times. Well, I really do think it. I think it goes back to sort of take on your first client, and your success really is your client's success.
Mm,
And that's the attitude that I've always really tried to come at this with.
mm-hmm.
I had kind of like a funny run at this because I kind of started out in a role like in a freelance role that still seems to still be standing out there in the world. It never really went away.
Yeah.
And so I have a little bit of a different take. I watch a lot of people who do things like this, in this space, in the kind of podcast YouTube space. I watch a lot of people talk, and it's really interesting because I think everybody has their own path. Like some people went a really formal way from like an ad agency and then went off and started their own, and that's great. They usually have a really streamlined approach and it's clean. And then you see somebody who came up through kind of hustle culture of just kind of doing it and going to seminars or watching YouTube videos or joining in on program on schools and whatever it might be, that they kind of came into this thing through this new media kind of online marketing approach to it all. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a really fascinating space right now because a lot of those people are really doing amazing things. So I don't think there's one road, but I think the commonality is really just the client really does come first, and you have to really grow what it is they're doing. It doesn't really matter what you've done in the past if you can't serve that client that's like right in front of you at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense, man. Yeah. I love, you know who Brian Tracy is? You know that guy?
Oh yeah, yeah. He's been around
Yeah.
forever. Yeah.
I don't know if it was him or Zig Ziglar. It might have been Zig Ziglar now that I think of it, but he has a quote. It's like, you can have everything you want in this world if you help enough other people get what they want. And that's always stuck with me. I think it's really great.
Yeah, Brian Trace is funny because I didn't hear his name for like 20 years. I don't know where he's been, or maybe I'm just not paying attention to the right circles. And then he recently just came across like on a podcast suggestion, and I recently had a chance to listen to him again after not after kind of almost forgetting about him. I mean, he's a part of a person I forget because he has so much truth, and he's so good at boiling things down to just like a little truism like that. Where
Yeah,
I think of him and Zig Ziglar and early Tony Robbins as sort of like pioneers in this space where people are really
for
getting a
sure.
voice now in the coaching. I feel like the coaching thing is red hot right now.
Hmm.
And those guys are kind of the OGs, right?
For
That list.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jim Rohn even was a good one. I loved him. He was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. Most of those guys come from like sales, don't they?
Hmm.
Like, am I wrong about that?
Yeah.
So it's sort of
Yeah, I
this
think.
space where they've kind of like, knocked on doors and done kind of tricky sales jobs to like learning these truisms that probably work for kind of all business and all outreach and all these things that we have to do. And we
Hmm.
can do, I mean, I think that that's what's great about, sales and sales training and all of that stuff, or even outsourcing your marketing, whatever it may be. You do have action items in front of you, and you do need to kind of systematize your business and do something. And there's always
Hmm.
something to do. Especially from a sales perspective, when you hear from guys like that, it's like, you always have, and I think about that too. It's like, I sell marketing services to clients, but what are those marketing services that I have that I can do for my business as
Hmm.
client zero, maybe? So
Yeah.
we should be taking all the strategy that we're trying to, preach to clients to do, and we should be doing that stuff ourselves. So I do think about that also, and maybe that's something to kind of talk to somebody starting out.
Hmm.
Is to just sort of if you're in the space of sort of selling some kind of outreach or some kind of marketing, whether it's video or writing or whatever it may be, offer yourself those services too if you have a down day, because you know practice these reps, build out that do whatever you'd have the client do it for yourself, and see if you kind of get a little bit of results or a little bit of exposure through those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, man.
Yeah.
Sweet. Doug, anything else that you'd love to share, talk about? Don't know what that could be, but anything you'd love to say some
Oh
words on?
man, we covered a lot. We jumped around a lot. Like, part of me wants to go back and talk more about AI because it's just so fascinating. But
Let's
it's
do
just
it.
like
Yeah,
trying
let's
to
do it.
forecast it. So like, what do you think about the space? I'll kind of turn that question back on you because I think it's just like there's stuff to be fearful of. There's stuff to be excited of. It leads to so many questions, about like legislation or about practicality, how we apply it, or just what it might be. It's just such a fascinating space.
Yeah, I think for me, like all that anyone can really do is just go and learn it as much as they possibly can and try and apply it. And like I've made a couple pivots based specifically off of things that have happened in AI, and I think you can have one or two attitudes about it. It's either woe is me, I'm a victim, and AI is happening to me, and it shouldn't be this way. But that's not the reality. The reality is it is happening. So
Yeah.
then the question becomes, what can you do about it? And I think a lot of people unfortunately get stuck, and they're not willing to adapt. And I mean, in a sense, it's, and some people hear this and it's like, oh, that's not a good thing. But life is in a lot of ways survival of the fittest, and it's
Yeah.
like, are you going to adapt or not? And if you don't adapt, it's not going to be that great. I don't know where things are going to, AI could be Skynet. I probably not going to be Skynet. I don't also think it's going to be like, human utopia. I don't think that's going to happen either. I think there's maybe those two extremes. It's likely somewhere in the middle, but all you can really do is just do what you can. So that's always been kind of my attitude around it.
Yeah, totally. And the hold on, I just lost a little bit of signal because I kicked the computer, so hang tight.
You're good.
But no, I'm still coming through there. Okay, so I guess it's all fine. But yeah, that Skynet analogy is interesting too. And then I just sort of think about the legislation of it all too, because I was recently in Italy and I pulled out my laptop and I went to go Photoshop, do something basic. Like, we've gotten kind of used to generative fill, and it kind of said, look, you can't use that here. It's not supported in this
Oh,
region.
really?
So in Italy, they just have kind of a block on generative fill and things like that. So I think some places are going to kind of legislate toward, this is kind of replacing human capital, don't have it. And other places are going to go, this is an arms race. We have to stay at the very front end of it all. Let's let this AI keep developing as quickly possible. There may be talk of kind of cocooning it and kind of letting people work where they did, or just stop it at a certain point and call that kind of the tool, and call what it replaces kind of the Skynet aspect. So there is this kind of interesting conversation on, what the legislation should be, but that's really hard to have because it feels like we have a ways to go before we know enough about what it can do, or who it replaces, or about what these true pain points are and what the true tool aspects are. So I think about that a lot too, is sort of like, where do we draw the line on, and does the society kind of divide into two, where it's like, here you have this bubble of people living with AI where everything's sort of automated, and then here you have the kind of the rebels from Star Wars kind of stepping back and be a little bit more analog. Does it look like that? Like, honestly, like, what does it look like? We don't really know. But I've sat in,
Yeah.
so I'm here in Silicon Valley. Where are you again? Remind me where you are.
Well, I'm in Colombia right now, actually.
Oh, that's right. You told me that. So I'm in San
Yeah.
Francisco, and we always have kind of like tech events, and anytime there's something that is AI that I can go to, I've gone to those. And now it's like in the video world, with like the NABs, or we have the Silicon Valley video, where I feel like half the conversation is now about AI, if not more than that. So it really is sort of like the discussion kind of anywhere you turn. And in San Francisco, it's like the job market is all AI now, because they're just trying to develop it so quickly in Silicon Valley. So it's really just sort of taken over the whole discussion. And even a company that wasn't in that is now trying to like push the AI aspect as far as they can, to just not get left behind in, whatever it is they're doing. So it's become such a fascinating thing. And in a way, it's really funny because, like, where do we draw the line? Do we say, hey, we're an AI enhanced production studio. Maybe I've had Silicon Valley guys tell me that I should do that. But it's like, so is everybody else. And what does that mean? Does that mean you just have ChatGPT in your browser and it's spell checking for you? Or does it mean that like
Right.
AI is editing all of your video? You know, it's hard to know. Um,
Yeah.
and I think in the future, it's just we're going to have tools sort of integrated into kind of everything from, I mean, we already do. So I think the future is here in a sense, but it's just going to keep getting better and better and better. So this is just such an amazing conversation. I mean, it's such an amazing time to be alive, to just watch technology like run sort of on its
Yeah.
own. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll share a couple thoughts on what you said. Um, because I think, and then again, maybe we'll move towards the tail end of this here, unless there's anything else you want to jump on. But
Yeah.
um, I think that one, there's a I can never say this word properly, inevitability of what's happening right now. And so I think you talked about, being in Italy, and it's like, well, okay, sure, you can block it, but to what detriment? Because if you block it, I mean, you're just
Right.
behind the rest of the world. And I think really, when it comes to personal, and again, we can have all these theoretical and hypothetical conversations, but the
Mhm.
reality is nobody really knows. And I think the only thing that can really help the individual is adaptability and just
Yeah.
being willing and open to whatever's going to happen. I don't know, but I'm going to be as adaptable as humanly possible. And I think the more you can do that, again, survival of the fittest, right? It's like, how
Right.
adaptable can you be in the world, and how willing are you to let go of past thoughts, beliefs, ideas about how things should, could, would be, and just adapt to what's in front of you. I think it's the biggest thing, at least that on my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's just, anybody who's sort of on the fence about adapting to it or using it or not really should be using the tools and learning about prompting and just starting a dialogue with it, because I just feel like anything you do to be productive in the future, you're people are going to kind of expect you to have some type of interaction with AI to kind of make part of your day more efficient.
Yeah.
So there's this whole efficiency standpoint where you just can't ignore it. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, there's no excuse for like a poorly written email anymore, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um,
It's going to be the same thing with smartphones. It's like you can't really run a business now if you don't have a smartphone and a good laptop. Like, it's just impossible, and it's going to be the same thing in the future, I think, with AI.
yeah, it seems like we're there. So,
Hmm.
you know, it's an exciting future, either one way or another. And it's such an interesting conversation. And, you bring this up to anybody in any field, and they're all kind of having a really similar, like a
Hmm.
similar kind of fear versus productivity kind of conversation around it.
Hmm.
There's definitely jobs on the chopping block, but it's definitely making the person in a role way more efficient. So
Yeah.
it's sort of an interesting time will tell kind of scenario. And right now the tools we've gotten out of it are awesome. So if it paused right where it is and left us with, some, kind of improved outlining, I'm not, I think there's a lot of jokes and memes around screenwriting. Like, does ChatGPT do anything else outside of screenwriting? It's like
Yeah.
outside. Then the memes that come out of that are funny, but it's like, I'm not totally satisfied. Like, I've got friends who will be like, I wrote a script, and by wrote a script, I got a treatment that ChatGPT gave me. But I'm always kind of like,
Right.
I don't know if I want to hear the stories that ChatGPT has to say. Like, I want to hear, what did you prompt into that? I'm kind of more interested in that
Yeah.
concept in the first place versus
Hmm.
like ChatGPT kind of jumping to like a formal approach to something, short film or documentary or whatever they are that people are kind of putting in front of me. But the part of that and the but is, I know it's going to improve. I know it's going to be phenomenal at some point. And,
Yeah.
if you say, hey, let's break the rules of filmmaking and make this more like literature, and by literature, I mean, I don't know, Ernest Hemingway or something, maybe that prose
Sure.
becomes like so good. It could already do that. But it's like,
Yeah.
maybe that prose becomes so interesting, but you do have to kind of go in there and edit what you want to do into it, because it's not going to be built in the vacuum yet. But in a few years, it's like, gosh, it may be more interesting than anything we've ever had. It's such a
Yeah.
wild conversation. It's just such a wild
Yeah.
conversation and
Well, it
amazing
makes us,
time.
yeah, it makes us question what it means to be human as well, I think, in a lot of ways.
Oh, totally. And in a sense, it's like the part that's kind of operating the best is really the chatbot. So,
Hmm.
if it's a customer service chat, it could probably replace a lot of people if it hasn't already done that in a lot of
Hmm.
industries. If it's kind of like just that, in a sense, this kind of spell check and back and forth ping pong of like, here's the email I'm trying to write, clean it up for me with grammar and spelling, or give me a hook or something like that. It's like that chatbot capability seems almost perfect, but
Yeah.
it's going to kind of keep getting better and better, more creative and more human. Yeah. So it's just such a fascinating thing to watch. I mean, it's going
Yeah.
to change everything, no, like one way or another, for better or worse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's exciting times, man.
it really is.
Um, cool. Well, Doug, this has been an incredible conversation, man.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Where can people find you?
Oh yeah. So my production company is Branded Content Media, and then my name is Doug Birnbaum, and I think we're both around, on most of the major social media platforms or websites. Yeah.
Sweet. We'll make sure to link you in the description as well. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and having the chat.
Appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
All right.